let's talk about something we've probably all seen. You ask a kid what a story was about, and you just get this blank stare back. It's that moment, right? You know they read the words, but the meaning, the whole point of the story, just flew right by. Well, that gap is what reading comprehension is all about. And today, we're diving into 5 evidence-backed keys to help bridge that gap for good. It's such a common experience. You hear a child sounding out every single word perfectly, they're not stumbling at all, but then you ask a super simple question about the story, like, so what happened to the main character? And crickets. That disconnect, the space between just saying the words and actually getting the ideas, that's the heart of the challenge, and it's exactly what we're going to unpack. You know, this official definition looks a little dense, but it tells us something really important. Reading isn't passive, it's an active mental workout. Extracting meaning, that's like pulling the facts straight from the page. But constructing meaning, that's where the magic is. That's about the reader bringing their own thoughts and experiences to the text to build a much deeper personal understanding. Now, just so you know, the strategies we're about to explore aren't just a bunch of good ideas somebody came up with. They're all grounded in solid research from a guide developed by leading literacy experts for the Institute of Education Sciences. So what we're looking at is what the evidence actually shows works for building strong readers. All right, so here's our roadmap. We've got 5 key areas to cover. First, we're going to talk about the real goal of reading. Then we'll get into how to give kids a mental toolkit of strategies. Third, we'll look at showing them the blueprint of a text. Fourth, how to make reading a real conversation. And finally, how to spark that genuine, lifelong love for reading. Okay, so let's start with the big picture. What's the real goal here? It's not just about a kid being able to sound out the letters D-O-G. It's about that kid being able to read a story about a dog, picture that dog in their head, and understand why it's even in the story. It's all about moving from just reading words to exploring whole worlds. And this slide really breaks it down perfectly. You've got 2 sides to the reading coin. Decoding is the how. It's the technical skill of turning symbols on a page into sounds and words. But comprehension, that's the why. That's the whole point, right? To understand the story, the ideas, the message. A kid can be an amazing decoder and still miss everything if we don't build that bridge to comprehension. So, how do we start building that bridge? Well, our second key is to give young readers a mental toolkit, a set of really powerful strategies they can actively use to make sense of what they're reading as they're reading it. And we're not talking about abstract concepts here. These are real, concrete actions. Getting a kid to pause and just predict what might happen on the next page, or to stop and create a mental movie of the scene they just read. These are simple but incredibly powerful ways to get them engaged. And summarizing? Just asking them to retell what happened in their own words is a fantastic check to see if they're really getting it. But, okay, how do you teach these things? Well, the guide recommends this really simple but brilliant method. I do, we do, you do. First, the adult models the strategy. You think out loud so the child can hear how your brain works. That's the I do. Then you do it together. That's the we do. And finally, once they've seen it and tried it with you, they're ready to try it on their own. The you do. It's this simple process that builds real confidence. All right, on to our third key. This is all about showing kids the blueprint of a text. Think about it. If a child understands how a story or an article is put together, they basically have a map to its meaning. It's like knowing the layout of a building before you even step inside. You already know where to look for things. And for young readers, they're mostly going to run into 2 main kinds of blueprints. You've got narrative texts. These tell stories. They have characters, a setting, a plot. Then you've got informational texts, which are all about explaining facts and ideas about the real world. Just knowing which type they're reading helps them know what to expect. For stories, this is the classic blueprint, right? Helping a kid point out the who, the where, and the main problem gives them these little anchor points to follow the action. And once they've got a handle on the what of the story, you can start guiding them to the why, the theme or the big idea the author really wanted to share. Now, informational texts have their own blueprints. And what's cool is they often leave behind these little clues. So when a kid spots words like because or so, they can guess, hey, this is probably cause and effect. Words like alike or however signal a comparison. Teaching kids to be detectives for these clue words is a game changer for understanding complex info. Okay, key number 4. This one is huge. It's about turning reading from a silent solo activity into a rich conversation. A really good discussion about a book is one of the best ways for kids to build deeper meaning and make connections they wouldn't have made on their own. But here's the thing, not all questions are created equal. You have what are called lower order questions. This is a perfect example. It's a simple recall question. The answer is right there on the page. It checks if they were paying attention, but it doesn't really challenge them to think. Now contrast that with a higher order question like this one. This question changes everything. There isn't one right answer sitting on the page. It forces the reader to infer, to analyze, to think about motivations. It opens the door to a real discussion, not just a pop quiz. And the real magic, the really deep learning, it happens in the follow-up. After a kid shares an idea, you hit them with one of these. Asking, what in the story makes you say that, pushes them to go back to the text and find evidence for their opinion. This is how you turn a simple Q&A into a powerful conversation. And that brings us to our final and, maybe the most important key of all, sparking a genuine love for reading. Because let's be honest, all the strategies and skills in the world don't mean a thing if a child doesn't even want to pick up a book in the first place. So how do we actually do that? The guide gives us some fantastic practical advice. Giving kids choices in what they read, that's a massive motivator. Letting them talk about books with their friends, that's another one. It's also about making sure they feel successful and helping them see how reading connects to their own life and their own interests. And I want to be really clear here. This isn't just some fluffy feel-good advice. The research provides strong evidence that creating this kind of motivating environment directly improves reading comprehension. Motivation isn't just a nice bonus, it's a critical part of the whole equation. I absolutely love this quote from the guide because it sums everything up so perfectly. These 5 keys, they're not a buffet where you can just pick and choose your favorites. They are all designed to work together, to support and reinforce each other to build a complete, strong reader. So here it is, the bottom line. Teaching strategies, understanding how texts are built, having great conversations about books, and building up that motivation, they're all connected. When we put them all together, we empower kids to become not just good readers, but curious, confident, and engaged readers for life. The only question left is, which of these keys are you going to start with?